Good day, gentlemen. So I'm in the process of continuing sort of my little mini-series on firearms. I do consider myself to be an intermediate firearm owner. I'm not an expert by any regards, but I do a lot with firearms, and I have pretty much all my life. What I wanted to talk about was sort of my decision process on how I came to actually make a decision on my everyday carry that I'm actually using now. And I want to do that and take that and compare some of the other guns that I have carried and why I prefer what I've actually ended up with. So I think I'll just go over that decision-making process first, and then I want to update on some of the holstering that I've been using. I actually had to make a change. I'll explain that why. It actually has to do with male anatomy, so if you're interested in that, you can kind of hang on for like part B of what I wanted to talk about today. So let's take a look at the gun that I'm carrying right now. This is a Glock Model 19 Generation 5. I have cleared all the weapons before we even get into that discussion. So I have nothing in the magazine well, and I have nothing in the barrel. So let's go ahead and just get this thing looking more like a gun. This is a bone stock model. I have not changed this in any way, and I don't intend to do very many modifications, if at all. What I have added is an Olight flashlight. It's a PL Mini, and you can see it sitting here. It's about 400 lumens, runs about 85 bucks as I recall, and this thing has been plenty for me. I have tested this and cleared the house with it. It's amazing. You can get way more. You can get 3 times the amount of lumens out of a light, and of course they tend to scale up and get a little bit bigger depending on what it is that you're talking about. I do love this too because one of the things that it does is a quick easy on and off, right? So you just take this little flapper lever and it pops right off, as you can see, right? So I shoot with this light in place all the time. I do that for a couple of reasons. One is that the range is kind of dark. The second thing is that I want to test it, right? I want to make sure this thing works and it can go after round after round after round without ever having any malfunctions or anything like that. So I do that on purpose. Let me show you how it charges. Actually, so convenient here, right? So we've got the USB at the one end, and then we've got this disc, and this is actually magnetic. So you plug it in and you just pop it on, right? And it's going to go ahead and do its charging. This glows green when it's finished charging, and it glows red when it's is in the process of charging. So it's a really kind of a very slick and very easy way to do things. I love this light, and it gets very, very high ratings, which was part of my reason for purchasing it in the first place. This is a 9mm, no surprise there. The only modification that I've done, which is really kind of a stock mod, is that with the gun there are a number of back straps that come with it. I've chosen the most aggressive beaver tail right here, and the reason why I did that was because it matches the web of my hand very, very well. So if I come in here like this, I get this sort of this stoppage point, and I find that to be very, very comfortable and very, very good. Now, so let's talk about the criteria that I used for the guns. Now, I don't want to convince you of anything in terms of, should you buy a gun. I'm more interested in communicating the criteria, okay? So, when I went to purchase this gun, I looked at probably 10 others. I had Colts and Smith & Wessons and H&Ks and CZs and Springfield Armories, and the whole list of them. They were all out, and I went through them all, and I did point and shoot practice, and it's sort of like buying a good pair of tennis shoes. Not everything works the same for everybody else, right? So that's how you actually end up going through this, is like, what feels best and how are you going to use this? This is just a tool to me. I'm not looking for the prettiest girl at the dance here. What I want is the most reliable. So my criteria was reliability. These guns are known for reliability, as are many other brands. I'm not going to try and sell you on that. However, they do have a very good reputation. I probably shot maybe close to 12 to 1,500 rounds through this weapon. I had one malfunction. I do, at the target range, use the cheapest possible target ammunition that money can buy. So, when it failed the one time, right, it just needed a little bit of slide work, and, ejected that round and got rid of it, and that was the only time I've ever had the problem, and that was right in the beginning too. So I think there was maybe a little break-in going on there. But what did I do? I'm going to blame it on the ammo, right? It's not the gun, right? I'm going to blame it on the ammo. So that's what I did. So reliability was number one. Capacity, we got a 15 round magazine. empty mag, 15 rounds, plus one in the chamber. So I wanted that, right? I definitely wanted something with a higher capacity. Double stack fits my hand very, very well. So we have a nice, thick grip here. And because I have kind of longish fingers, I need some place for all those meat that meat to go. And I end up very, 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 very comfortable in this regard. So it just fits my hand very, very well, right? So the capacity plus the fact that I get a double stack out of it, very, very good. Whereas I take the Colt, which I do carry as well, or have carried. I don't carry it anymore, and for very good reason. So this is a 380. Again, we've got an empty gun, no mag, nothing in the chamber. And if I reset this slide, we do have a hammer. This is a hammer firearm, whereas a firing pin actually operates the Glock. I just straight up just can't trust this thing. I don't know why that would be. It's probably a training issue. We have a manual safety on here, whereas the safety features in the Glock are more integrated. Let's just say that, right? I really wanted that. I didn't want a hammer firing gun. What I do find to be very, very good about this gun is really light. It's really small, and it works really well. And I do have a belly band that I use to conceal this gun. However, whenever I carry it, I never carry one in the chamber, whereas with the Glock, there's always one in the chamber, right? The thing is ready to rock and roll, whereas I would have to rack the slide with this. I know that, condition 1 versus condition 0 is a lot of controversy about that. I much prefer to carry condition 0 because I don't want to be futzing with a slide if I'm in a defensive situation and have to defend myself. But it's the only way I really feel sort of safe carrying this without... or lowering my risk for a negligent discharge, right? The other problem with this gun is that it's very slim, right? So, like I said, I got these long fingers, right? And there's just not a lot of place for all this meat to go, so I don't really care for that much. And I also hate the sights. I could probably do something about that, but you'll notice here is that the front sight is not interchangeable, right? It's a part of the slide. The rear one actually is. So you would have to do something there to make the sight picture better. I don't really care to spend the money on that. That's not really where my interests lie, right? So Colt government model, it's an awesome little gun, but I've also found that this one will jam up, right? It depends on what I feed it. So it's really quite picky about that. The defensive round, for example, I have the most problems. So in talking with the gunsmith that I work with, he suggested that if I'm going to carry this gun, just use Target, full metal jacket stuff, right? It's just simple, it's easy, cheap, right? But it will probably feed better, and I'll have less problems with that. So it's a very interesting concept that I don't really want to monkey with, right? So the Colt government model does get carried occasionally, especially on that belly band. Condition 1, right? Not condition 0. So there's that one. So let's take a look at the Browning High Power. Empty mag, nothing in the chamber. Again, hammer-fired weapon. Love this gun, right? I mean, this is a pretty sexy weapon, I have to say, right? It looks a lot prettier than, say, the Glock, for example, right? There's just a certain aesthetic about it that looks nice, and that's not by accident. Somebody knew all that, right? This gun is far heavier. It's all metal, whereas we've got a polymer lower on the Glock. This one is all metal, and again, we've got the hammer. We have a manual safety here. I typically carry this one condition 0 with one in the chamber with the safety on, but I find the safety to be very, very wonky. It's just not where I would want it to be or need it to be in a crisis situation. The weight on it is amazing. I can fire it better. It has a longer overall structure to it. So if I take these guys and I line them up, look, I've got another half of an inch or so on the Browning High Power as compared to the Glock, and it's just amazingly noticeable in terms of the management of recoil, which improves accuracy, which makes everything better. I mean, nothing's better than marksmanship at the end of the day. This has a aftermarket sight system on it, and it's much better than the Glock, for example. So very, very cool. But man, this thing is heavy, right? This thing weighs a ton. The grip is amazing. So it's just this big, wide, this big wide grip where you can put these, these long fingers, whereas my fingers are wrapping around clear down to here when I'm holding on to the Colt, for example. So we have a small gun, we have a large gun, and then we have a medium gun. And of course, that one's based on the tried and true 1911 frame that's been in play for, years and years and years, and everybody has a love affair with that, and I do to an extent as well. I don't know that it's right for my everyday carry, however, but it's a lot of fun to shoot. A lot of trigger travel on that guy too, which I don't really much care for, but that's kind of, how it is. Speaking of triggers, so, the Glock, about a 5.5 pound pull on this thing, and it has the integrated safety feature in the trigger itself, right? So, and it's got numerous, like it's got a drop block, right, that stops this thing from firing should the gun be dropped. So the safety features are state of the art as we know it in 2019. I'm sure somebody will come up with a much better way to do things in the future, and it'll be awesome, and so cool. You could be like, why didn't anybody else ever think of that? So, but as of today, I feel as though this is a very safe gun to carry, more so than the hammer-fired weapons. And this has no external safety on it whatsoever, right? It's all sort of internal, with the exception of the safety lever that is a part of the actual trigger. I don't want to do trigger work to this because in a defensive situation, should I find myself I'm all, jacked with adrenaline and I'm having to defend myself, fight for my life here and get in a gunfight, I don't want a 3.5 pound trigger as maybe a competitive shooter might. It's too light. I just don't see myself doing that, right? I also don't want to modify this a lot. There are certain things that I do modify. There's a lot of things that I don't. I just go with the way the manufacturer actually designed it to do, right? So, not saying I won't, but I haven't yet, right? You can see here too is we've got the stock sights on this thing, and I think they're worse, right? That Colt sight system is a whole lot worse than these. I could get rid of these and maybe get some tritiums on there and a little bit of glow in the dark, but then again, I do have a flashlight on here, so it depends on how you think you will actually use this weapon, and I don't foresee myself making a whole lot of modifications. If I wanted a play gun, I just get another gun, right? I probably still carry this one, so that's sort of where my head was at with this thing when I was buying it. Let's see, what are some of the other safety caliber? 9mm, we talked about that. I find this gun to be a lot of fun to train with, right? So if I went to a subcompact, yes, it's much lighter and it's more comfortable to carry, like the Colt. However, I find if I'm when I enjoy firing it, I fire it a lot. If I fire it a lot, that's the gun I want to carry. So that's my line of thinking with that in terms of going up to the compact rather than the subcompact, because when you go subcompact with my fingers, I end up with a pinky finger at the bottom, off the bottom of the grip, and I actually have to add a little piece of rubber, aftermarket piece there that contains my pinky finger so I can get everything on the grip the way I want. And let's face it, a shorter, smaller gun is going to kick harder, and you have to be ready for that. You have to train more for that. In my case, I would have to train more and more and more to do that. The mechanical safeties, I don't train enough, right, to feel confident that should I need these things in order to defend myself, that I'm going to go, okay, the bad guy's coming at me. I'm trying to get some distance between us. I'm drawing a gun. I have to remember to kick this safety off. I may end up having to, rack the slide in that case, which I don't want to do all that, right? I just want to draw, point, shoot, and be done with it. No thinking, is at least as much as I can avoid of that, right? So aftermarket, right? Glock it's like everybody knows about Glock. Every parts manufacturer in the gun world does something with a Glock. The more stuff they do with a Glock, the more money they make, it would seem. So I really like that, and I also wanted to be able to access that, right, at the moment's notice if I wanted to modify, especially like holsters, right? I mean, any holster maker, if you're not doing Glocks, you're way behind the curve here, right? So that was definitely something that I wanted to take into consideration. Maintenance, right? Very, very easy to take this gun apart and actually work on it. It's simply amazing. So again, we've got an empty chamber, we've got an activated trigger now, so I have to set that off. And in order to take this thing apart, I mean, it just couldn't be any easier, right? I mean, you do this action here and you pull the spring and, you know, out comes the barrel, and, you know, you're ready to do a basic cleaning on this thing. You just don't have to do much at all. I could probably do it blindfolded if I had to. It takes very little oil, right? You know, guns like a lot of oil, or it seems to. At least some of these older ones seem to like oil because they're all metallic and, you know, they need a lot of moving parts and so forth. Whereas simplification doesn't really require a whole lot of oil, and, you know, manufacturers' tolerances have improved. So again, you don't need as much oil. So these are the kinds of things that I was looking for when I purchased this gun, and I couldn't be, you know, any more pleased with how this thing, you know, actually works. So, you know, give it a few, you know, cycles, right, to see if this thing is working properly. I do put, after I'm done cleaning with it, I will load the magazine and install some dummy rounds that I have, just to make sure that it ejects properly and that it feels right and that we don't have any, you know, any surprises. So yeah, so the trigger is not as smooth as maybe you would like it to be. However, it is functional, right? 5.5 pounds or thereabouts, right? All right, there's the Glock. So that finishes up sort of my criteria about how I ended up with this particular gun. Now, what I want to do is I want to go back to holstering, and I actually developed a problem. So, quick side note, if you've ever had kidney stones, which I have 2 bouts. One was really bad. The second one was kind of minor, but the first one was horrible. I mean, it was horrible, right? What I learned in that process is that we as men, right, and I'll step back, is that everything down here is kind of connected. It's sort of the center of the universe. I know I don't have to convince you of that, but it's just the center of the universe. Let's just assume that for a second. So when I got my first kidney stone, what happened was that, you know, your kidney's back here, right? Back here, right? What wakes me up, you know, out of a dead sound sleep? Testicular pain, okay? I get up and I'm peeing blood. Okay, I think I'm about to die here. I have never experienced anything like this before. Make a very, very long story short, I end up at the urologist. He's explaining things to me. He's taking pictures. He's telling me, oh, you've got a 10 millimeter, you know, stone. I was like freaking out, right? Like, what is causing this? And if you've never peed blood before, it is a new experience, let me guarantee you, right? And you want to talk about just a frightening thing to have happen. You pee a lot of blood. At least I did anyway. What he explained to me very simply is that because of the center of the universe and all these nerves, buddy, you know, that's how you... into that, and the battery dies on the camera, and I don't get to finish what I was working on. So, you know, it's all connected, right? So here's my problem. This Alien Gear holster, right? This is actually the basic configuration for appendix carry. I have it set up for outside the waistband right now, but you just change out these clips on the sides, right? But this is basically how this goes. Now look at this. Got a new holster here. Let's take a close look for a second. And if I hold them up so that the tip of the barrel is about equal, see how this guy sticks down? It's about 1 inch, right? Okay, so what was happening is when I carry this appendix, right, which would be in this position, shunk down into my gut area, this thing was digging like right in here, okay? What was the problem? I started getting testicular pain, man, and I mean in a big way, right? To the extent that is like, I don't even want to put this thing in my pants, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to carry my gun because my balls hurt. Okay, that's not right. I need to do something about that. I mean, I love the system, but for my case, right, if I get pressed right here, right under my gut, that is just an issue, and I don't know why it is, just the way we're wired. Okay, so I had to take care of that problem. And you recall in my other video that I talked about this system, right, which I'll link in the description. It's not configured for the Olight, but retention is not all that great on this thing. So retention comes into play when you actually strap it on. So that's when it's retained, and that's how you would set up with it actually in place. That's fine and good, and other holsters do that as well. Okay, so I have a testicular pain problem to take care of. I wanted to add the light, which I have now done. I go to John Lovell, who is the host of the Warrior Poet Society on YouTube. If you're into guns, I'd really recommend that you go check him out. This guy's awesome, right? He's a former, military guy, and he's a Christian guy. Love that. He's got a nice little, pretty little family. He's a good-looking dude. He's very articulate. He's a thinker, which I love that part about it. I just love watching his channel. Just everything he produces has just got stuff, right? So what does John carry? He carries a Tier 1 tactical. This happens to be the Axis Slim, okay? So what did I do? I just went with his recommendation. I mean, there's 1,000 holsters out there, and everybody who's got holsters has got a drawer full of them that didn't work, right? So I'm going with my guy, right? That's what I did. So I ended up with this. So I had to configure this in a certain manner. There are a myriad of options on these things, which I really like, but that's what they need in order to custom make this. They don't have these on the shelves. That's not the way it works, right? So even the color, see how the back is darker gray than the front? That's because I chose it that way. You can get pink, you can get red, you can do all kinds of stuff you want with this thing. However, one of the things that it does is that it will accept this Glock Model 19 Gen 5 with this specific Olight PL Mini, and it slips in just like so. And now we have a retained handgun, right? So I actually have to put some pressure on that. It is adjustable, and it's not nearly as loose, just kind of hanging out here, right? I mean, this thing is just like, let me see if I can do this without dropping it. Yeah, see, it'll retain, right? I like that. I like that a lot, okay? I also had a holster, a magazine pouch installed. So if I go like this, right? So now I've got 30 here, I've got 30 here, plus one, I've got 31 rounds. Where am I going, Afghanistan or something? And the answer is no. That's not what the point of an extra magazine is. The point is that if I start to use this magazine installed in this gun and that thing fails me, that thing's going to get ejected onto the ground. I'm going to grab this one, I'm going to stick that one in there, and I'm going to go to work on somebody, right? That's the reason why. Now, does it make it heavy? Yes, it does, right? It definitely does. And I never mentioned in the beginning, too, is that I carry Hornady personal defense rounds as a day-to-day operation rather than a full metal jacket over at the range. Just side note. Okay, so there we have this rig. Now this rig is much shorter. I actually also raised, how did I do that? I made it so that the overall holster, when strapped in, is up about 1/4 inch, right? So I still needed that relief, right, to get that nerve to quit pinching on me like it was doing. And that problem is absolutely gone away. I wear this gun all the time, every day. I work from home. I carry this thing. I don't ever leave the house without it. I drive with it, the whole bit, man. That's how it works. I also want to show you this part too. Is I thought this at first was paracord. That makes no sense. It's not. It's a stretchy material, right? And I've seen this around. I don't know what it's called, but it's holding the magazine pouch to the main holster. And if you watch it here, right, the whole thing articulates. So that's actually pretty nice should you start to move around or squat or do all kinds of crazy stuff or whatever. It has the claw on it, which the claw's purpose is that when it's installed, it's pushed up against your pants, and that brings the grip in, right? It brings the grip in more so than, say, the appendix carry on the alien gear, right? So it's called the claw, and the claw's purpose is to push the grip in. Makes it more concealable, right? You don't print as bad because the grip on this thing is pretty hefty. It'll really, really stick out. You can see this big, this big thing here, right? So that's how. That's what I ended up with. So who knew that somewhere in the world that a kidney stone would teach you a lot about your anatomy and how you could actually carry a gun. Now you connect the dots, right? I can't figure that out, right? But when your balls hurt, you're gonna get some stuff done. It really doesn't matter how much money you spend. I guarantee you. At least that's the way it was for me. So very, very comfortable, awesome. Love this rig. Carry it with the light on it, the whole bit, man. Just really dig this. Okay, so that is it for me. Gentlemen, thank you for watching. Leave your comments downstairs, and I'll see if they make sense. If it's a good question or something, I'll try and answer it, right? It's awesome. Give me a like. Give me a subscribe. Check you later. Okay, I did a story. If you have ever suffered from I did a view. God. it is, let me start over. Tactical, tier 1 tactical. Jesus, I'm really struggling here. I can tell you, for me, it works really, really well, and I like to swing this elbow in just a little bit, right, to get my sight picture online.